you're looking for any plugins, presets, extensions to save you time and create cool effects, my digital asset store is at the top of the description. What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about something super interesting, how you can create a virtual influencer. Now, let me show you 3 examples here. And in my opinion, this is something where when done well, you can really get a step ahead and create a lot of success. And you see that from people like FN Meka, who you might have seen is the first virtual rapper that ever got a record label deal. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that, but we're just going to talk about the technology behind how you can create something like this. And I want to build on this and create a couple of videos along the way where we talk about different tools, different ways you can implement this in your workflow. Here's another great example. This is Code Miko, live streamer. And again, doing something very similar where you have this sort of VTuber thing, and it's sort of like an ongoing technology project, but she implements different ways to get her audience engaged and utilizes things like Unreal Engine to add that engagement to her stream. Like, for example, having this sort of race with everyone in her chat, and she can go in, people can vote in chat to change what the avatar looks like in real time. Tons of really cool stuff. Here's another one, Xanadu, and this can show you what it really looks like with the setup here. You have a full motion capture suit, and you have this iPhone for your facial capture. Now, we're not going to talk about that in this video. There are tons of different ways to create characters, to add motion to your characters. This is the fully leveled up version if you want to go down the route of putting a bunch of money in. I'll show you how to add some free motion, and we're only going to stick in Blender today. I do want to move into Unreal Engine for a lot of this because that's where you're seeing tons of this real-time setup, especially for live streaming. But let's start easy mode here, and let me show you how we can create a TikTok style video or short style video like these ones here, where we just have our 3D character and he's walking around in real world footage. So let's get right into it. If you enjoy, slap a like on the video, comment down below anything you'd like to see next in this series or any other series, and of course subscribe, turn on those notifications to stay up to date on everything we're dropping weekly. For our character here, I'm going to use the free 3D software DAZ along with Blender. Now, it doesn't really matter where you move out from DAZ. Maybe you like Cinema 4D, maybe you like Maya. You can bridge from DAZ into any of those 3D softwares. The core point here, DAZ is a really great free software for creating characters with ease. Now, the catch with DAZ being free, they do have a large marketplace where you can download some assets and it automatically loads into your software. So if you do want to have a specially customized character without having to sculpt everything from scratch, you guys can go to shop here and you can look through all the different characters, costumes, animations, etc. Really great resource, saves you a ton of time. They also have some free starter packs, free assets, which you can download. Once you've installed DAZ, once you have that install manager going, we're going to go to smart content here. I'm going to go down to figures, and let's go ahead and create a basic Genesis 8 male figure. So we'll double click here. Now let me slap on some starter clothes here so we don't get marked for any weird nudity. And you can see how really easy it is. I've said it before, but it really feels like a video game whenever you're doing something like this. It feels like you're creating a character in like Sims or whatever. And I think that sort of experience is fun and it makes doing things like this really enjoyable. So I'm going to toss together a quick character. We're going to skip the hair. I'm going to show you an easy way to create hair in Blender, even if you guys are beginners with Blender or with DAZ. So don't worry about that. Let's just go into the wardrobe section here. And like I said earlier, I have a bunch of these just from other projects I've worked on in the past that I bought. So let's go with something like this. There's the Cyber Shade outfit. This one is the Nico outfit for Genesis 8 male. If you want to search that on DAZ, pretty cool looking. Go to anatomy. I've got some of these cybernetic arm attachments, which is pretty cool. So we can make the right arm or the right forearm like a robot arm. And you can go to materials here, change any of that around. So there you guys go, easy cyberpunk character just by using some of those presets. That's if you want to do the easy pay mode. You could always use DAZ just to get a basic character. You could use something like Blender. You could use something like Marvelous Designer to design your own clothes, or you could do modeling on top of that if you want to save money or do it in your own vision. Now we can also go to shaping here, and under the face tab, under the head tab, you see I have all these different sliders. If you guys purchase any of the different facial models, you can go to the sliders here, just crank those up, and it's going to completely change the face. Talked about this software here, FaceGen Artist Pro, super amazing. What you can do is load in any image of a person. I use this for the Tyler Creator Clay Shader, and you can create a 3D texture that imports into DAZ. Roll up, we have a bunch of custom ones from different faces that I use that software on. So you have Tyler the Creator. Keep in mind, this is only the facial shape and everything's unrendered, so it's going to look kind of weird here. I'm mentioning that face gen software because if you want to create a really unique AI generated custom face, you could use something like this art breeder website here. You can enter references, you can mix together different things, and AI is going to generate a custom face that you could use with that Face Gen Artist Pro software. So a cool way to have a fully AI generated face, like for example, if I was to go here, I'm not going to do the generating, but this is all generated by random people. If I was to go here and just save this image, we can go to Face Gen and we can go to create and just load that back in, and we can go to next, and you can follow the prompt here to sort of set up. So you see in the top right, it's telling me where it wants me to place this. I want to get everything out there so you can choose your path. You don't have to follow along, spend the money just like I'm doing. So there we go. We just created a custom face and a custom texture. You guys can go to modify and change any of this around. Again and again, just look up Art Breeder tutorial if you want to mix together, create your own custom face. We can go to File, and you see right here, it can load into Genesis 8 Mail or any of the other Genesis presets for DAZ. So I'll go ahead and name this AI Generated Face, and make sure you set it to where your DAZ Assets folder is. We'll click Export. And there we go. So let's load in that custom face. We'll have that Genesis 8 Mail selected in the shading tab over here on the right. Go back to head. And again, here's all your sliders loaded in. And again, this is just the facial structure. So if things look a bit weird, keep that in mind. You don't have the texture loaded in. It's only the facial structure. So here's the basics of our character. Now, another quick workaround is using the DAZ to Blender bridges, and you can install this through the DAZ Asset Manager. It should walk you through everything. If you're stuck, just look up DAZ bridge to whatever 3D software you're using. In my case, I'm going to use Blender. So all we need to do here, let's just select everything just to be safe. I'm going to go up to File, Send To, and I'm going to click DAZ to Blender. All right, guys, so once you have run that, we're going to let the script get everything ready for Blender. Now, once you've installed the bridge, what you guys can do here is click this little arrow, and you should see this once you've installed the importer for Blender. So we'll click Import New Genesis Figure, and here we go. So we'll switch to the rendered shading mode in the top right. All right, guys, so everything is loaded in. If I was to select the face here and go to the shader editor, you can see it creates all these iRay shaders converted. So everything's set up, all the maps loaded in from DAZ. So let me go ahead and show you how we can load on our custom face that we saved from Face Gen Pro. And what we're going to do is just change around some of these maps. So this is our Genesis 8 base face map. We can click here and we want to go and find the custom map from Face Gen. So we want to go to DAZ Assets Runtime. So you can just go like this, click Enter, go to Textures, and then we want to find Face Gen here. So we'll type it in there. Genesis 8 Mail, and here it is, AI generated face. So here's all the maps from Face Gen. So we can load this in. And the nice thing about the Blender bridge, it's going to have all of these bump maps, normal maps, so all of the detailed skin textures. So you can already have that loaded in. You don't have to custom do that. But here's our AI generated face texture. Now you'll notice here we have our armature. So everything's all rigged. We can switch over to pose mode. And what we could do here is just select any of these different parts, click G. You can see this is rotating our arm. Now, if you guys want to, if you want to add some custom motion onto this, of course, what you could do is you could just delete this armature. You can export this figure here. So you could export this all. You could join it together, do whatever. File, export, FBX, and you could bring that into MIXAMO. I've shown that a bunch in the past. It's Control Z to undo that. I want to show you an alternate method here because everyone talks about MIXAMO. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with MIXAMO. We'll go to edit mode here so you can see all the bones. You just look up free motion capture. There's a lot of videos talking about this, but essentially a lot of college studies, they do a lot of college studies that use motion capture, they'll usually release the files that they gather for free. So you see research motion datasets. You guys can go in here and just download from GitHub. And you see all the contents that you have here, and you can check some of these out. If you want to download that, just go to File and go ahead and download these datasets. To actually put this onto here, you're going to have to retarget, and I'll leave some retargeting tutorials below. You'll have to do a lot of it by hand. If you want a shortcut, there's actually a Blender add-on, and that's called BVH Retargeter, I'm pretty sure. I'll just turn both of these on, BVH. So you can select there once you've installed that, and I'll leave the link below to that, of course. And then you also have something like Auto Rig Pro, which is a paid software, but it's pretty nice. So we can select Auto Rig Pro, and this is pretty much the same as MIXAMO. So again, if you don't want to go through MIXAMO, say we don't have our armature here, you could select Auto Rig Pro, full body, and you can just click here, and it's exactly the same as MIXAMO. Where you just kind of set these, and you go through like that. You can also do a facial rig using Auto Rig Pro as well. So nice little feature. Well, they also have this Auto Rig Pro remap, where we have our source armature and our target armature. You can download any of those free motion data sets, and you could just import it here. So we'll go to File, Imports, and Motion Capture.bvh. So I'll just load in one of these BVH files. And these are pretty gigantic, so we'll put this to like 0.1 for the scale. And the cool thing about Auto Rig Pro, you can go ahead and click this auto scale. You can select this armature, source, select your target, and then you can select auto scale. Then we go ahead and click build bones list, and you can see everything lined up. If you need to, you can, if any of these are set to none, you can just select these specific bones, and then you can go ahead and set your root. So usually that's the hips. So let's set this as the root, and we'll click retarget. And there you go. As you can see, we have our motion capture applied onto our model. So again, just an alternate method from MIXAMO. In future videos, I'm going to go over more with motion capture, that this was worth the mention because it is such a powerful tool, and it allows you to get a lot more complex motion if you don't want to invest in tons of money on a motion capture suit. You guys can go through all of these different folders. They have a little index spreadsheet here that shows you which file corresponds to which. So subject 5 is all dancing. All right, so now let's create some custom hair for our character here. And this is very simple. So I'll select this Genesis 8 male shape. I'll click tab to go to edit mode. Let's actually go back to 0 here where we're in our T-pose. And I'm going to go to face select, and I'm going to switch to our select circle. And I'm just going to hold down shift and select the scalp area here. So this is where we want to grow our hair. All right, so there we go. We've selected that. Again, it's not perfect, but that's fine. I'm going to click over to the object data properties, and I'm going to create a vertex group. So we'll click plus, and I'll name this scalp, and I'll click assign. Okay, now we can go back into object mode. And let's go up to this object tab, and we'll go down to quick effects, and we'll do quick fur. So you see it's covering the entire body here. What we want to do is go to our particle, go to the particle settings here, particle properties. We want to go down to vertex groups, and we want to set scalp for all of this. So there we go. So just put a density to scalp. And now you see we have this crazy afro protruding from the hair. So it gives us a nice little start. Go back to our particle properties. Now, if we go down to the children section and the hair shape, this is going to help you the most when it comes to shaping the actual look of the hair. So I'll change the hair length, make that a bit shorter. I'll just bump the amount up to 5,000, and let's go and kind of shape this to our liking. So I'll switch over to the particle edit, and you see you have a comb here. You can add, you can cut. So let's just go and comb this sort of back along the head. Then we'll go to cut, and I'll just sort of trim like this. Then let's switch back to object mode, and you can see a little bit of what that's looking like. And if you need to, just go back into particle edit, fix any of these parts that may be clumping up. All right, so pretty simple. Again, you can come back once you've combed everything up. You can go to the children and hair shape, and you can see clumping, change that around, parting. Kink is just basically going to change the style of the strand. So if you want super curly hair, you guys could do something like that, and so on and so forth. So I think that looks fine. It's by no means a professional grade 3D haircut. We'll go down to hair shape here, mushed up. So I'll set that to like 10. And that should be fine. Of course, you guys can go in and customize it to your liking. This is pretty ugly swept back, but if you take a bit more time with it, you can make it look pretty nice. There we go, some easy hair. If we go to timeline, you'll see it's still gonna move along with our animation, which is what we want. Now, in terms of the color of the hair, you guys can come down to the render section. Right here, this render tab, you'll see this material. This is going to be the material that's driving the color. So what you can do is go and create a new material. So just go and click the plus, and you click new, name that hair, and you can change the color. So let's go back to particle, our material, set that to hair. And then in your material section here, you can change the color. So if you'd like to go with a custom color, you can do that. I kind of like how the white looks, so I'll just set it to white. And the last bit of customization that I'm going to show you guys here, I want to show you how you can add custom textures onto the face, body, whatever. So say for example, like a tattoo. So we'll go ahead and select the body here. And we have a ton of different textures here. So just scroll through in your material properties until you find the torso. And then let's go to the shader editor. And we just want to take a look. At the maps here so we can customize the textures. So if we go to the diffuse here, our base torso map is what's being utilized. So we can just save this location here. This is where all of our maps that are being utilized are. So we'll click Control C. And I'll go ahead and open up Photoshop. And if you guys don't have Photoshop, you can of course use any free editing software like GIMP, I'm not sure how people pronounce it. So I'll click open in Photoshop and I'll click Control V and I'll just paste in that location that we saved. And this is the torso that's being used. And then while that opens up, I'm just going to look up tattoo PNG and we'll find something that we can put on the chest. So I'll even look up chest tattoo. And we'll just save this one, or you can even copy it since it's Photoshop. Copy, Control V to paste. I'll remove the background of this, so I'll just use the magic selection tool. You guys can just choose something that you think looks best, maybe like linear burn. Put the opacity down a bit, and we can save this custom map. So we'll go to File, Export, we'll quick export as a PNG, and we can go ahead and save it in the same spot, or if you want, you can just make a new folder here called custom textures or something like that. Then back in Blender, all you have to do is select again. So make sure you're selecting here. You're in your shader editor, just change out the map and just like that. So very simple. If it doesn't look the way that you want it to, like for this one, you can see it's like super stretched across the torso. You guys can always come in here and just change it around. Maybe we'll like shrink it. Then you guys can just reload that back in. Cool. So that's how you can do custom textures. Of course, you guys can do that with the face, with the arms. Just make sure you select here and find whatever map you want to change around. And that's about as far as I'm going to go in terms of customizing our character in this video. I do want to leave you off by showing you how to kind of create like a short, a TikTok, a YouTube, or Instagram reel, whatever, with this character, with our animation that we already created. You can post your new digital influencer. And to do that, I'm going to find some real life footage. Let's go ahead and download this one here. So in After Effects, we're going to create a new project, and then I'll go ahead and drag this into After Effects. So I tried it with this video before, but there was no motion. I'd rather show you guys with some motion. So let me actually create a new comp out of that. Then we can right click, track and stabilize, and track this camera. All right, so our tracking is complete. We can choose where we'd like to place our character here with this bullseye. So I'll right click and click create solid and camera. Then we can kind of rotate this track solid around if we need to, just with the orientation. Kind of give it a little bit of swivel. Got a good track there. So to bring this camera data into Blender, all you have to do is use a free script, and I'll leave the link to this below. The link includes a full description on how to install this, download it, etc. It's pretty nice. Once you've done that, you can just go to File, Scripts, and you can install it here, so it's always going to be right there, or you can just run the script file that you download. So I'll click Export Camera Data, and we'll select Work Area, and I'll click Export. And then back in Blender, we can go up to File, Import After Effects Composition Data, select it, and there we go. You can see here is our track solid right there. And then this first one is actually if you'd like to load in the reference footage. So you can select this larger plane. You can go to Shader Editor and just create a new material for that. And just load in an image texture. So Shift A, image texture, connect the color to emission. And then just open up the same footage that you're working with. And there you guys go. To be able to see that, turn on auto refresh, and then just give it some frames. We can also go to the world settings and put that to 0. That's if you'd like to have the reference footage. Doesn't really matter here. I'll put the alpha down a tiny bit just so we can see through, so we can actually see that track solid. And that track solid is where we want to place our character. So go back to the timeline. We go through, you get a nice little reference of what it's going to look like. Let's go in here and place our character on this smaller plane. To be able to position this a bit easier, I'm actually going to Shift A and create a little null first, or an empty, create a plane axis, and then we can just select this, select the plane axis and click Control P to parent. So parent to object, and then we can just name this character and move with this. So a lot easier with the little parenting going on there. And we'll just click G and move this over to the plane. And you can go to your camera view just to see what that looks like. And you can see if we go to our render shading, you can mess with the scale here. So I'll click S, make that a bit larger, while still making sure it's aligned with our plane. Now, if you guys want a certain part of this animation to start at the beginning of your camera, for example, at the beginning of this animation that we transferred onto here, he's just kind of doing some weird stuff. First, let's find a part in the animation that we like. So let's go look at here and just scroll through until we find part of this dancing that we really want to do. So maybe like right about here, we can start at like 5:15. Start 5:15. And let's find our camera. So here's our camera that we imported in from After Effects. Find wherever that is hiding here. So in this null, this 3D tracker camera orientation, we can click on this animation tab, and you see this is where this starts. So if you want the camera animation to start where your character animation starts, go ahead and grab all these keyframes in the timeline and then just click G and move them over. So our camera can start right where our character animation starts. Now we go here and you can see just like that, everything is looking good. All right, and then last but not least, I'm going to set up a little shadow catcher using this track solid so that in that way we can see some shadows underneath our character's feet whenever he's jumping, make it a bit more realistic for our composite here. So I'm just going to click this little yellow square, and for our scale, I'm gonna sort of just make this a bit larger. So to turn this into a shadow catcher object, it's a bit different in Eevee. I'm gonna leave a link below if you're doing it in Eevee and Cycles, which we're working in right here. Very simple, you just select this plane, click on your object data properties, come down to the visibility tab right here and check on shadow catcher. Now, of course, you want a light in here so it actually casts some shadows. So we'll click Shift A and I'll just add in something like a sun. So go to light, sun, and we'll bring that over here. Check what it looks like in the rendered shading, and we'll go to our object. We'll go to our render properties, film, and check on transparent. And now you can see that shadow being cast. You guys can of course go into your light properties, bump this up. You guys can also load in an HDRI image. So click on your world properties and under color here, click the yellow dot and just go to environment texture, and you can load in any HDRI to sort of match the lighting of the footage that you're trying to replicate here. So great place to find HDRIs. We go to polyhaven.com and HDRIs, and let's just try and find one that's similar lighting. And then back in Blender, once that's done, you guys can load that environment texture in, and of course mess around with the strength of your sun, and looks good to me. So once you're ready, you can render this out. You only need to do it for how long the animation is. So our animation goes to around 9:43, so we'll set the end to that. You don't need this plane here, so you guys can either hide it in the render or just delete it. This is all we really need. Let's go to our output properties here and set everything up. So 1920 by 1080. Frame rate, it depends on the frame rate of your actual footage, which we can check in After Effects. In our project bin, ours is about 24 frames per second, so 23.976. 24 is fine. Frame rate and frame starts, that's all good. I already have that set. Output, this is where you can set up where you want your rendered images to export. So I'll set this to TIFF, and then I'll create a new folder here, and I'll name this render. And last but not least, render properties. You guys can work with some motion blur if you want for some more realistic movement. Again, film, make sure transparent is turned on, and you guys can mess around with your Cycles or Eevee render settings here if you'd like. I'm gonna go 500 and denoise. Same with our render, 500 and denoise. And once you're okay with all that, we can go up to render and render our animation. So back in After Effects, right click in your project bin, import multiple files, and navigate to that folder you set up in Blender and just click import as footage. And there you go. Make sure if your frame rate isn't matching, right click on the footage and go to interpret main and set that frame rate to whatever your footage you're compositing into's frame rate is. After Effects automatically imports at 30 frames per second. Other than that, you can do some After Effects compositing tricks, you can color grade, you can do whatever you want. Added a tiny bit of lens camera blur, and I just did some masking so the shadows weren't going crazy, and then added some coloring in Adobe Premiere. So I hope you guys did enjoy. Like I said, this is part one, just setting up a character, creating a simple animation with it. If you guys are interested in this series, I definitely want to get into things like upgraded motion capture for the face and body, whether it's using a suit or other free or paid methods. I want to talk about implementing this character into Unreal Engine so you can set up things like real-time live streams that allow you to interact with your audience. I think that would be really cool. Or setting up a sort of YouTube show where you have a virtual character. Again, it's like mixing entertainment and content with technology and visual art. So I think it's a cool concept as a whole, and I think there's a lot of interesting things being done with this, so I thought it was worth talking about here. So just let me know your thoughts down below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you in the next one.